In 2014, a convicted sex offender invested millions in a then-tiny startup called Coinbase. The banks had shut him out. Silicon Valley welcomed his cash. This is how a new financial system changes the rules of who gets to play. Forget the promise of easy money. Follow the flow of ostracized capital. Let's find the new rules in the code. Chapter 1, the permissionless payoff. The first and most powerful incentive is simple. Access. Traditional finance operates on a system of social and legal permission. Banks are the gatekeepers. Their business depends on reputation, and they have strict rules. Know your customer laws designed to keep out high-risk clients. If you're a convicted felon, a sanctioned entity, or a reputational pariah, the gates slam shut. Your money becomes trapped or worse, frozen. Cryptocurrency was built with a different premise, permissionlessness. The code doesn't ask for your resume or your criminal record. If you can acquire a digital wallet, you can participate. This wasn't a bug for its early builders, it was a celebrated feature. It meant anyone, anywhere, could be a user or an investor. For a wealthy individual ostracized from traditional circles, this is a financial lifeline. But the incentive goes deeper than just holding Bitcoin. The real leverage is in funding the infrastructure itself. In the 2010s, crypto startups were the ultimate outsiders, brilliant, ambitious, and chronically underfunded. Their primary incentive was growth and adoption at any cost. Rigorous background checks on investors were often a secondary concern, if they were a concern at all. This creates a perfect alignment of incentives. The pariah needs a new, unjudgmental financial network. The crypto builders need capital to create it. A transaction occurs that would be impossible at a traditional bank. The pariah's money buys not just assets, but legitimacy and influence within the next generation of tech elites. They aren't just storing wealth, they are buying equity in the very system designed to bypass the old gates that locked them out. This is the first critical shift. It's not just about hiding money, it's about using that money to rebuild a platform and status that society had revoked. But buying a ticket back into the game is one thing. How do you make sure you can never be kicked out again? That requires building a whole new set of rules. Chapter 2, designing an un-cancelable system. The second major incentive is censorship resistance. In the traditional model, if a bank or a government decides you are a threat, they can deplatform you. They can freeze accounts, block transactions, and financially strangle you. Your wealth is only as mobile as your banking relationships allow. For someone with extreme wealth and extreme risk, this is an existential vulnerability. Their incentive, therefore, is to support and fund a system where no central authority holds that power. Enter the promise of decentralized cryptocurrency. If money lives on a global distributed ledger maintained by thousands of computers, no single entity can turn your funds off. Your solvency becomes a mathematical fact, not a privilege granted by a board of directors. We see this incentive move from passive use to active sponsorship. It's one thing to hold Bitcoin, it's another to fund the academic labs and development initiatives that are writing the rulebook for this new world. Donations or investments in university digital currency labs aren't merely charitable. They are strategic. They place the funder adjacent to the cryptographers and economists, defining concepts like privacy, governance, and decentralization. The goal is to influence the architecture of the system itself, ensuring its core principles align with the need for permanent, unassailable financial access. This is a long-term foundational bet. The payoff isn't immediate liquidity, it's the creation of a financial environment that is, by design, resilient to the very forms of social and legal pressure that marginalized the individual in the first place. They are incentivized to create a world where reputational risk is a concept that applies to old-world banks, but not to the movement of digital assets. Yet, this pursuit of a perfect, private, and permanent system runs into a brutal, unexpected reality. The very technology that promises freedom creates the most damning paper trail ever invented. Chapter 3, the Immutable Trap. This brings us to the third, and most ironic incentive, the blockchain's permanence. Early narratives focused on crypto's pseudo-anonymity, the idea that wallets were just strings of letters and numbers disconnected from real identity. This offered an obvious incentive for obfuscation. Funds could be shuffled through mixers or shell companies, creating layers of distance. But this incentive is based on a short-term view. It misses the forensic power of an immutable ledger. In traditional finance, a shell company can hide ownership and transactions can be obscured or lost. On a public blockchain, every transaction is recorded forever. It cannot be altered or deleted. It's a permanent, time-stamped footprint. For law enforcement and investigators, this is a goldmine. Their incentive is no longer to crack a single bank's records, but to follow a trail that is, by its nature, complete and unchangeable. If they can ever link a single cryptocurrency address to a real-world identity through an exchange sign-up, a leaked document, or a transaction with a known entity, they can map that entity's entire financial network. They can see every payment, every transfer, every interaction stretching back years. This creates a devastating system trap for the user who sought secrecy. The tools used for obfuscation, multiple wallets, shell company addresses, become nodes in a visible network. The blockchain doesn't forget. A donation to a research lab, an investment in a startup, a payment to a contractor, all of it sits on a public record, waiting for the one thread to be pulled. So the incentives collide. The user is incentivized by the promise of privacy and borderless movement. But the system's foundational architecture creates an even stronger, opposing incentive for forensic investigation. It trades the opaque, corruptible records of the old world for a transparent, incorruptible ledger. You might evade today's gatekeepers, but you are building a permanent testimony for tomorrow's prosecutors. This leaves us with a final, unsettling question. If the ledger is permanent and the incentives are so misaligned, what does this mean for the future of wealth, power, and hiding in plain sight? Chapter 4: The New Rules of Hiding. The story here isn't about one individual. It's a case study in how new technologies rewrite the rulebook for power and consequence. The takeaway is a new set of constraints that everyone from billionaires to ordinary users now operates within. First, reputation is laundered, not money. The classic problem was money laundering cleaning the proceeds of crime. Crypto introduces reputation laundering. The goal is to convert socially toxic wealth into influence and standing within a new value-agnostic system. The currency isn't just dollars, it's equity in the future. The lesson is to watch where ostracized capital flows, because it's buying more than assets, it's buying a seat at the table where the next system is being designed. Second, privacy is a time-limited illusion on a public chain. Believing in permanent anonymity on a transparent ledger is a fundamental miscalculation. The incentive to hide crashes into the system's incentive to record forever. The only question is when, not if, forensic tools will catch up. For anyone, this means understanding that using a public blockchain for sensitive transactions is less like sending a sealed letter and more like carving a message into a monument. It might be coded, but it's permanent. Finally, the ultimate gatekeeper shifts from institutions to mathematics. In the old world, a banker could say no. In this new one, the code says yes, but it also never forgets. The power isn't in preventing the transaction, but in possessing the immutable record of it. This flips the long-term risk. You escape the human gatekeeper today by submitting to the judgment of an eternal digital ledger tomorrow. So, what can you do with this? You don't need to be a billionaire to understand the principle. Any system you participate in, financial, social, digital, has underlying incentives. Ask the simple questions: who benefits if this works? Who bears the cost if it fails? And what does the system remember forever? The answers reveal the real rules, long before the consequences arrive. The unresolved exposure is right in front of us. We've built a system that is brilliantly resistant to censorship, but one that also creates a perfect, unchangeable memory of everything it was used for. What happens when we've incentivized the world's most secretive actors to fund and use a system that is, in the end, the world's most truthful witness? If you want to understand how the hidden rules of our world really work, follow and subscribe.